There have been a ton of developments in the Microsoft Activision Blizzard case, including the idea that Microsoft might try and close it with or without the support of the CMA. Let's dive into it right now. So this story comes from IDIS via MLEX over on Reset Era. There have been some very interesting things going around. Here's what he said on the forum. So first up, they said Microsoft executives are actively looking at ways to close the acquisition despite a UK veto on the deal. That's from MLEX. The CMA currently has an interim order in place preventing Microsoft from acquiring an interest in Activision or any of its subsidiaries. We know that. It is likely to make that permanent very soon. The surprise speed of the CAT appeal process may dampen any calls within the company for it to close the deal regardless of the UK block. I have a question about that previous paragraph, actually. How are they going to make that permanent when they're in the middle of an appeal? Like, there's a chance that they could just purchase each other. So I don't know if that's IDIS adding his own flavor to the text or if that's actually in the MLEX article, but that's strange. Anyway, our priority is pursuing the appeal process in the UK while we remain committed to constructive dialogue and solutions to address regulatory concerns, a Microsoft spokesperson said today. So that's the most recent quote, but what is actually going on behind the scenes? Well, it seems like they're trying to close with or without the CMA. Microsoft has hired extra lawyers and has tasked some with examining how it could close the Activision deal MLEX understands. One option could include Activision exiting the UK for another European country in a bid to remove itself from the CMA's jurisdiction. Now, we've discussed with, not IDIS, with Florian Mueller, with Michael Pachter, and others what they could potentially do, and that's largely what they have said. Its games could continue to be sold via a distributor. One rub is that any such decision must be taken by Activision to avoid breaching merger laws that stipulate that merging companies must be managed separately and independently until they actually close. Another option could see Microsoft extend remedies given to and accepted by the European Commission to the UK unilaterally, even though they were rejected as insufficient by the CMA. I'm not sure how the secondary option would address the blockage by the CMA, but interesting thought. The company is also actively contesting the CMA's draft order that would give effect to its veto, banning Microsoft from acquiring an interest in Activision for several years and vice versa. The ability of the UK watchdog to impose a global ban solely to address concerns relating to the UK market is at the center of that. MLEX understands Microsoft could challenge the final order in court to seek to narrow its scope to potentially allow it to close somewhere else in the world. You know, that's really interesting because if they're saying you can't do anything anywhere else in the world because the CMA says so, the deal's approved in 40 countries, unconditionally in most. The EU had some stipulations about cloud gaming, but that was it. Everywhere else, unconditional, right? So the fact that the CMA has blocked, and I mean, anybody who watched the trial hearing know those lawyers were stuttering a lot. They seemed really embarrassed. The judge did not seem happy with the report. He read through it twice, and it's going to be really interesting to see how the appeal all plays out. If I have to imagine that the CMA is talking about their options, they should figure something out with Microsoft, in my opinion, because they're going to look real bad when it closes everywhere else. I don't know what's going to happen in New Zealand, obviously, but I've said from the beginning that I think this deal is going to close, and it's going to be really curious to see what happens with the appeal, especially if everywhere else approves. Anyway, continuing on. Alternatively, Microsoft could seek to close the transaction and argue that the order was illegal in its defense when sued by the CMA. Seems pretty likely, seeing the CMA is saying we're going to block it, but 40 countries approved it unconditionally. In mid-May, a reporter for CBC asked Microsoft Chief Executive Satya Nadella whether the company could close the deal. Let's wait for it all to play out. We remember that quote. Asked by MLEX on May 12th whether it could close around the UK, a representative of Microsoft said, "It was a complicated question, but at some point we may need to think about it." A spokesperson from Microsoft advised against reading too much into the comments. Well, I'm going to do that anyway because business-wise, everywhere else approves, they can close in the US right now. Canada's passed their statute of limitations, which we learned in the appeal process. Like New Zealand isn't that big of a territory. They don't seem to be leaning either way. Africa is continuing through their process, leaning towards approval. So if everywhere else approves, the CMA is going to be standing there sort of by themselves, and they're going to be in a tough spot. We're going to continue on with a few more quotes, but while I have you, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell, and hit that like button if you're already subscribed to help the channel grow. Let's hear what Lulu Cheng Maservi said, because she had a comment about what happened in Asia, because if you don't know, it was approved in Asia. So Lulu said, the world's most formidable gaming companies are based in Asia, and yet their home countries are allowing American companies to compete on a fair playing field, while regulators elsewhere seem to be helping market leaders enshrine their dominance. With its unconditional approval for our merger with Microsoft, South Korea has joined dozens of other countries, including China and Japan, in welcoming more competition and consumer benefits in the growing gaming industry. Very company line, not too tongue-in-cheek, but a little bit tongue-in-cheek, which is kind of her MO. She really nails that tone. And largely, what is going on with the CMA? The CMA decision makes no sense to most people. Look, if you didn't want the deal to go through, or you're on, I'm looking for my headphones. If you didn't want the deal to go through, but it's for a reason that isn't what the CMA outlined, then the CMA's case makes no sense. Nobody was out there saying cloud gaming is a big problem. The EU said that, and Microsoft was like, okay, 1% of the entire gaming market. Like, you're talking about millions. The Activision Blizzard deal is worth billions, maybe trillions over a long enough time period. So yeah, you're talking, it's just a little strange, right? The final thing I want to cover off on was this clip that Julia Chatterley posted. I'm going to put on my headphones so I can listen along with you. This was on the CNN interview with Brad Smith. Activision Blizzard fog clearing. Regulators in almost 40 nations have approved the Microsoft Activision Blizzard deal. Here's what he said.
Well, fundamentally, we have an acquisition that we think will bring more competition and more access to games for consumers on a global basis. And that's why we now have approval from almost 40 countries with more than 2 billion people for this to proceed. And there are some regulators that have expressed concerns, and we get it. We want to address those concerns.
So obviously referencing the CMA are the regulators that had concerns. The EU had concerns. They addressed them. It's very strange.
I'm encouraged that we were able to have a solution for the European Union that lets the acquisition go forward, again with guardrails, to ensure that everyone gets access to these games for all kinds of cloud game streaming services, and not Microsoft alone. Now, obviously, we have not yet succeeded in addressing the concern of every regulator, but look, at the end of the day, you have to decide, do you want to find a solution to every problem, or do you want to find a problem with every solution? We are focused on finding a solution to every problem, because
like what could he possibly be talking about? All right, CMA, we'll appeal your decision. We're going to close this deal in the rest of the world once we get our 2 or 3 finalized approvals by the end of June. Good luck. The appeal judge seems to be leaning towards Microsoft. He grilled the other people on the panel during that meeting, and I believe that transcript is live now, so I could talk about that in another video. But Brad Smith seems to be laying it on pretty thick right here.
I believe solutions are there, and you can count on us to want to be creative, to want to be constructive, and frankly, to be determined to keep working to find the solutions that will get the good out of this and then make those benefits available to everybody.
Watch this space. Brad, you couldn't be clearer on that. Great to chat to you, sir, as always. It's always exciting times, but I think this moment perhaps more so than ever. We'll speak again soon. Thank you so much. And
as always, yeah, thank you.
Are they flirting? what's going on? Anyway, Brad Smith basically saying, hey, look, we're going to find a solution to this thing. We're going to move forward. The CMA, you can do whatever you're going to do. We're going to do whatever we're going to do. And if you're wondering how it's going over at the FTC, I was going to talk about this potentially in a separate story, but FTC Chair Khan accused of abuse of power in new U.S. House probe. The House Oversight Committee's chairman, James Comer, anyway, opened a probe Thursday into U.S. FTC Chair Lina Khan's management of the agency, citing complaints of abuse of power. So that's what's going on over at the FTC. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens. Regardless of which side you're on. If it gets blocked, that's going to be an interesting story. I think it goes through, and then what Microsoft decides to do with all of these IPs that they're going to get control of, it's going to be very, very interesting. I got to get back to playing some Diablo. Let's be honest. I'm going to be so hooked on that game. Thank you so much for watching. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that bell to know when it goes live. Hopefully, you're still checking out my content as I post it. Thank you for watching. If you're already subscribed, hit that like button. I updated the member list, like I said I was going to, like a million times. Thank you to the members. I know I've been a little less frequent lately. Still trying to get a few videos out a week. My 2-year-old likes to play blocks, and he likes to go on scooter rides and do all this stuff. And that's really hard as a dad to shoot a YouTube video every day, you know. But today, lots of news to talk about, lots of exciting stuff, and I will keep you informed to the best of my ability while balancing all of the other joys in life, like playing with your son. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to see my video from previously, the last one I shot was with Florian Mueller, so go check that out. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. I'll catch you for the next one. Bye for now, everybody.